Hello, hope everyone's okay. I'm not doing too badly. In between showers, rain and wind and all that now, just trying to get a video out of the Devastation before I sort of go around and try and do whatever I'm going to do to it all. So we'll have a quick whip round, see what's going on, and I will also splatter in probably the 6 ferns that seem to be pretty bulletproof, as it were, or cold proof. I can't really put them in a top 5 because I don't know which one's harder than the other because they've all seen the same temperature anyway. So if we start over in this bed, you can see the bananas still not looking great. I haven't done anything with them. This set, the pup hasn't collapsed yet. We'll get to some that have. Other ones, again, apologies for the wind. I'm sort of, I can't really do a lot about it. Big surprise over the period is this Saxifraga stolonifera. I was under the impression this is a house plant, but I put it in about a month later. It got decapitated by a cat, probably our cat, which is why it's on lockdown with all these stones and cones here. And it's out in the open. I didn't cover it, didn't do anything. That's exactly how it's been for the last 4 or 5 months, and it's seems to be doing okay for -7, -8, whatever we had. The Eucomis is obviously one that dies anyway, so he's not looking too great. That's where my giant honeysuckle is going to go, and another fern of some sorts, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, he's not too bad. So you might have guessed, one of my stars of the winter is the Dryopteris atrata, which is this fern here and this fern here. These obviously aren't a year old, but they've only been in the ground for probably 4 months for me, but they seem to have shrugged everything off even though that's the case. So good hardy fern, and if you've watched any of the previous videos, I love these. They look very Jurassic like. The coloration of them is quite a sort of grey green, which I think works quite well with the dark rachis and stipe on it, which is the stem. Yes, I have got a fern book for Christmas. So in amongst all of these, we've got the Blechnum chilense, which I'll probably move over to the other side of the atrata. But this thing's, doing okay, I suppose. It actually looks like it's taken a bit of a dig, but there's nice and green in there, so I'm quite happy with that. The banana is not looking great, but we all know that was going to happen anyway. So second star for winter is this one at the back. We've got another one which we'll have a look at as well. That's the Polypodium vulgare. Quite a leathery fern, doesn't look like it's going to get big, but a good little filler, evergreen as you can see, and this is full sun. There's another one growing in full shade, and they've taken -8. So yeah, pretty good. You can probably see there's 2 spikes from the canna come up over the last week or 2 during the freeze, so maybe I missed them when I cut them all off, but they've just popped their head up, so I might need to cut them, I don't know. If we make our way around over here first, worst time for the sun to come out where it is, but this Arariostega pravipinnata, I can't get too close because that's a little bit dodgy when you're in slippers. But you can see the wind and frost has stripped the original fronds, which are the ones with nothing on. I think it's deciduous anyway, so they had gone red, but the 2 new fronds that come up, until I guess it sorts its body clock out, they seem to be alright. Frost didn't do too much. The one next to it, which you probably can't see, which is right butted up against the side part, that's I want to say a Denestadia glauca. I think that's only just been put in there. It was only small. It wouldn't surprise me if it's dead, but I'm hoping it's deciduous and just died off. Other than that, me reserve banana pups, I didn't get them in time, so they've all died. So it frees up some pots though for next year, so that's not too bad. If we come over here, I've already mentioned the atrata. You can see a couple of the big pups off this banana, which was quite nice and big, have collapsed. That one's collapsed on top of the Dryopteris phoenix, which, as you can see, was actually going to be quite a good one. And he was covered by the dahlias in the summer, so yeah, he's had a bit of a rough one so far. This other pup here has collapsed as well, as you can probably just about see there. Other than that, probably the star of winter is this, which is a Dropteris Erythrosora brilliant. In the spring we'll see it comes up and the fronds are red and then they turn green, but at the moment it's a real nice limey green. You can't really see it now because of the sun, but when it's overcast during the day, this thing really pops out. So I might actually get a couple more of them, dot them over with all the like really dark green stuff just to add a bit of something to it. Otherwise, this was is a Dropteris wallichiana, which is similar to the Atrata, I believe, just slightly different in a couple of details, but otherwise they're pretty close. The wind actually snapped these after the frost. We sort of come out the frost and straight into quite high winds, so that's all bent over and that, but any fronds that are snapped in a bit, I'll just sort of chop them off at the snap point and see how we do. But yeah, other than that, the bananas don't look great, but I think I might just chop that one leaf that's bent over at the top, because I'm assuming the grow point is inside there, so if I can not restrict that, then that might help. But otherwise, yeah, same again with these pups, I'll chop them off before the bend, you know what I mean, before they've bent. So coming over into this bed, the Lophosauria is not looking great, but you might just actually be able to catch the coloration on the underside of the leaves, the flashes of sort of grey and green. They look really good, these, I tell you what. If I can get down to here, can you see just the coloration on those ones there, just about? But this thing is going to be, when it grows hopefully, I'm going to light it from underneath, because I dropped my torch the other day and it shone, when I was walking around, it shone up under these and it really showed, so that's quite good. And also I believe there's a Cyathea that you can get, which is grey underside of the leaves as well, so I might chuck one of them in there. We'll have to obviously look at hardiness and stuff like that. So the Tetrapanax is definitely not looking too good. It's actually looking better than when I first put it in. That's because I think I killed it earlier in the summer. Go and find the videos for that. But other than that, the leaves have still got a bit of rigidness to them. They just seem like they're soaking wet, and that doesn't surprise me, because obviously it's been raining non-stop for about a week and a half now. The Schefflera rodendifloria is okay, I think. I mean, a lot of these I'm not going to know until spring, I guess, whether they start growing or not. Another star of winter, you might guess, the Asplenium scolopendriums, these two here, very hardy. Don't seem to like full sun from what I've sort of gathered over the summer, but otherwise tough plants, and they're good little fillers just in between, just to break up the sort of featheriness of some fronds, and they can get quite big, I believe. Hopefully they grow really well around here, these parts, so yeah, you should be alright. This Woodwardia radicans, you can see the frost has burnt off all the greenness to all the fronds, but we can already see just there in the centre of the screen there's one coming up, and there's probably 3, 4, 5 maybe more there ready to come up, so I assume that's just waiting for the temperatures to go. This thing, I still can't remember what it is. I will find out and let you know what it is. On here, something that's looking quite good, which is not a fern, is this Pilostagia verbenoids, climbing hydrangea. He's doing alright. He started growing off, the leaves are nice and green. You can just see that little spurt there coming off in the centre was not there 2 or 3 months ago, so he seems to be quite happy. Another plant that really seems to, I wouldn't say like the cold, because it'll probably die on me, but this thing looked pretty good throughout. The Schefflera tyaniana, leaves are nice and glossy still. It's got plenty of pertness about it, so yeah, we'll just leave them in there like I did with a lot of them. And the reason I snapped the fronds on the Dixonia when we get to it is because I'd basically piled up against the stem loads of like the old leaves, then a layer of straw, then a layer of bark, and that was just to keep the worst of the temperature off. But also I didn't want it sitting there, so as soon as we came up 2 days later into like the 4 degrees, I'd come and dug it all out, so to let the let the stem sort of air out, as it were. And then I can see we're getting some rough weather coming again, some cold weather, then I'll just do the same. So coming across another, that's a royal fern there. I did mention in the last sort of video, not the planter one but the last tour one, that these did add something with their autumnal colour. That autumnal colour lasted probably a week or two before they started looking a bit more like this, but it might have been because of the frosts as well. So yeah, again, another like the Erythrosora. I might pop a couple. I've got a few dotted around. I might pop them in this little section here, because most of these are green all the time, so just add a bit of colour here and there. So another star of winter is this. This is a Polystichon setuferum, and this is a Herrenhausen. This looked good before the freeze, and it looked good during the freeze, and it looks good now. I assume that means all Polystichon setuferums will be okay, but you probably might want to check. You know, they're not particularly expensive, then you can get them everywhere. So yeah, it's funny that, and the cheapest ones seem to be the ones that are most hardy. So we can actually see, this is the first time actually I've noticed that something's eating these aspleniums. Usually they don't, but you can see I've got 3 of them just in there. They're all doing really fine, even though they're getting eaten by something. The Fatsia had a bit of a brutal one as well. This I'd only put it in, it's big, but I'd only just put it in a month before the freeze. You can see the flower spikes bent over, it's still producing flowers and whatnot, so I'll just leave that, and I'll be quite interested to see what happens with that growing wise when it starts up again. There's another Pilostaga verbenoides at the back there, which is, I assume, doing okay. I haven't really checked it out properly yet. This one here, which looks really good in spring, as you'll probably see if it's not dead, is the I think it's a Polystichon polyblepharum, I think, something like that. There's another drop, it's Wallaceiana, which was a really small plant when I put it in. It's not fared amazingly well, but there we go. Fig tree is obviously deciduous, dropped its leaves way before and is probably coming out, though I'm not 100% on taking that out or not yet, so I need to make a decision on that in the next sort of couple of weeks maybe, purely because I wanted it on the plus side to grow up over this fence, create a little canopy over this area, but something's telling me that the roots go mental on fig trees, so I don't want it stealing everything from all this lot that's going to be in here. And in here I'll probably put, between the Herrenhausen on the right, this one looks a bit rougher than that one because I moved it just before the freeze because it wasn't doing too well over there where it was getting sun. So yeah, definitely these Setiferum, Polystichon setiferums, I would say definitely go more towards full shade, part shade than sun, because that one was only this one was only getting the morning light for till about 12 o'clock, but it still didn't grow quite as well as that one. There may be other factors in that, but that's just for me as I see it. Here's another Atrata, which you can see is looking fantastic, and hopefully these will get really big. When I say really big, I don't mean crazy big, I just mean maybe come out a little bit more and a little bit higher, but we will see. In here actually, between the two of them and probably where that royal fern is at the moment, the deciduous one, I'm going to buy 2 small Cyathea australis. I've been reading up on them. They actually could be as hardy as the Dixonia antarcticas. I just believe the issue with them is that because you have to do a bit more protection for them because their trunks aren't as thick as the Dixonias. I think that's what it is. That's the kind of gist I'm getting. But funny enough, around here didn't actually get any frost even when we had the -8. We can actually see the temperatures we got down here. So you can see the maximum for this area here has been 13 and the minimum over the last few weeks has been -8, so that's where we got to with it. So yeah, we'll have a look. There's another Polypodium vulgar right there just behind it at the bottom, doing well, full shade. Fatsia, another Fatsia, he seems to be doing okay, don't need to say too much about him. The yeah, the Dixonias did not like it. Obviously it was all covered, and then what it was, we had that frost, and then 2 days later when I started clearing out all the bark of everything else that didn't really, you know, I don't want to mollycoddle these for 6 months, I was taking out all the stuff from around there, all the leaves and all the stuff that I'd lent up against it and put in the crown, and usually when I do that nothing happens, but because these have been frozen, I take it they haven't thawed out and pumped the water back up from the plant yet, so they were obviously quite brittle. I didn't even notice because I was doing it in the dark. It was only when I come up the next day, but these are all snapped. So I think what I'll do with these, because I want to essentially just leave everything on as long as I can, so just because it's brown and that doesn't faze me amazingly, but I don't want the snapped bits on them. So there, for example, I'll just chop it 2 or 3 leaflets or pinnés down, rows of leaves basically, and then I'll do that for all of them, all the ferns, and we'll just see how we do. This is a small Dixonia, more of a plant than a, didn't have a trunk. But this is really nice. Yeah, definitely if you see one for like 10-20 quid and it's just a small plant, put it and get it, because they are absolutely vigorous and they just seems to be throwing up new fronds here, there and everywhere, not in sets. Another Wallichiana here dropped its Wallichiana. You can see the crown's right. I might need to build that up a little bit actually up to that, but I'll chop off these old fronds that are covering it up and hopefully it'll recover. But that's some nice colorations on that, isn't it? Looking at that, there's sort of purples, oranges, blacks, lime greens, dark greens going on with that. So yeah, the 2 ferns I said last time, again, it didn't take them long to go from looking really nice and bronzy and adding a flick of colour to looking a bit ragtag, but I'll just leave them in there until next year. The Phacedora is doing okay. You can see it's not dead hopefully, but I'm going to be interested to see again with the what happens to the growing point, because that all definitely got frozen, and I know it definitely got frozen because all the aphids that were huddled up there are all dead and gone, so that definitely got on, because they hadn't quite died off last time I did it. So other than that, this is my next little section to build up. Sorry, it's a bit dodgy walking around, but another Atrata there that's doing alright. There's a Blechnum spicant in there, which apparently can be fussy, but he seems to actually like it in there, so yeah, we'll see. And the Jurassic Gold here in the Tiki Head. Next couple of weeks I'll get the other Tiki Head, and then that means I can do the steps in this area and that area. Another thing I'm going to do is get the square pavers to add another layer onto this patio all the way across, and then put 3 in the middle. Then I'll use whatever I can of these like coping stones, as I'm calling them, put them, do a little outline of the square patio stones with them, so I can tie it up with that end and this end. That will leave me however many I can use as coping stones, actually what they're meant for on top of the walls with that planter and what I'm going to do up there. And then yeah, get the 2 fence posts in, and I'm not worried about doing the pergola now. I'll probably make 2 or 3 years, but I need to get the footprints done, if you can catch my drift on that. So yeah, so fair bit of Devastation. I'm going to go round, work my way around all the beds. When I get a point, I should really be doing it now because there's no rain, but I've got a couple of bags of manure. It doesn't really need it because all this soil is pretty much, I put it in there new, if you see what I mean, so I know that it's full of manure and whatnot and slow release stuff already. But I will, just as a sort of habit, just put a layer down, maybe a couple of inches, something like that. Chop off all the little fronds, do weeding before I do all of that, and generally just get it ready for the next 3 months of just sort of sitting there doing nothing really. Chop up the bananas, and yeah, that'll be it. I did have a little idea actually, because over here I was going to put sort of extensions on these fence posts. Sorry, that was a really rubbish angle, and then put a trellis on top of it. But I'm wondering, like, if I put it at an angle, so it's kind of like a little roof hanging out, and then the plants, because they'll be evergreen climbers, when they climb across it, will sort of, create almost like a canopy, and that could be good for the Cyathias, as in it'll be keep the frost off them a little bit, because obviously the frost drops. But yeah, there we go. Anyway, you can see it's starting to rain, so I better get in there. Yeah, hope you're having a good one. See you next time.